Cast your minds back to the year 2014. It was a year of transition, tragedy, and, if your name was Caterham or Marussia, financial trials and tribulations. It was a year of transition with the introduction of the new hybrid power units that we know and sort of love to this day. It was also a year of tragedy in that it was also the year in which Marussia driver Jules Bianchi suffered his ultimately fatal accident at Suzuka. Shortly thereafter, though, linking to the financial trials and tribulations, both Marussia and Caterham entered administration and were mostly absent from the grid after the inaugural Russian Grand Prix. As a result of this, from the start of the season, the field briefly went down from 22 cars to just 18, prompting F1 bosses to seriously consider introducing 3-car teams going forward. Again, the late Jules Bianchi is relevant here, because as Luca di Montezemolo, Ferrari's then president, had said that if 3-car teams had become a thing, Bianchi would have been in line for the 3rd Ferrari seat, presumably alongside Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel. In this video, I would like to revisit the idea, but in a more modern day context, and is also meant as a bit of a light-hearted teaser for myself to contemplate. So I ask the question today, in a universe where F1 bosses suddenly mandated 3-car teams for 2025, what would happen in the driver market? Now, of course, there are many contractual complexities in real life, so I'm just going to stick to the hard and fast rule that any driver who is contractually locked in real life will remain where they are, which, yes, for those wondering, does include Sergio Perez. As of this video being recorded, the teams and drivers in real life look like this. Now that I have mentioned Checo, I might as well start with the Red Bull teams, Red Bull Racing and VCARB, as I shall call them, as, Visa Cash App RB is the stupidest name since anything Jamie Oliver names his children. This is a pretty easy dilemma to solve, as there are currently 5 drivers vying for 4 seats in F1 in the real world, as well as an exciting Red Bull-backed youngster in F2 at the moment. Max Verstappen is of course locked in until the 2028 season, despite Toto Wolff's recent advances. And speaking of advances, this is what destroyed Minilad's career, and even though Sergio Perez's form has been tanking like that of his YouTube channel lately, I am going to give Checo the benefit of the doubt due to his experience and the number of Latin American sponsors brought in by him. So don't worry Red Bull, your merch sales will be safe for a little while longer there. So what about the 3rd seat at Red Bull? That is going to go to Daniel Ricciardo. Not only is he a fan favourite, but the Honey Badger is also a proven quantity, having taken 7 of his 8 wins with the Red Bull team in the past. It also helps that he doesn't currently have a contract with VCARB at the moment, so slotting him into place was pretty easy here. Something else that is easy, as previously mentioned, is where this leaves the other outstanding drivers on Red Bull's books at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda is already locked in at VCARB for 2025, and Liam Lawson undoubtedly deserves a full-time shot after showing his prowess in 2023. Which involved out-qualifying even Max in Singapore and scoring points, and then finishing ahead of Yuki in front of his home crowd in Japan. So naturally, the 2nd VCARB seat goes to him. Now if you've been watching Formula 2 this year, you'll have probably already guessed who I have gone with for the 3rd VCARB seat. It is of course Isaac Hadjar. He currently leads the standings as of this video being recorded, and has done since the Silverstone round. And even though he can be quite hot-headed at times, I'm sure he can be mellowed into a quick and formidable driver. So for the Red Bull teams, I have gone with Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez and Daniel Ricciardo at the main team, with Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar at VCARB. Speaking of Red Bull, someone who used to be a prominent member of that family is the Chile man himself, Carlos Sainz. He is of course off to Williams next year to partner Alex Albon in the first ever appendixless driver lineup in F1 history. And for Williams, the 3-car scenario for 2025 is very easy, and any Argentine viewers will rejoice at the fact that I have gone with Franco Colapinto. He has shown great maturity in his debut appearance at Monza recently, getting well and truly stuck in and even performing a couple of on-track overtakes, something which he proved to be proficient at during his recent time in Formula 2. No doubt many an Argentinian sponsor would come on board from this, something which James Vowles has already alluded to, since signing Colapinto for the last 9 races of 2024. So, a strong and promising lineup here at Williams, of whom would have Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz and Franco Colapinto as a 3-car team in 2025. Speaking of British teams, next up is McLaren. They are on somewhat of a high at the moment, certainly in terms of performance, but maybe less so on the team orders front. They already have 2-star drivers in their lineup in Lando Norris, who could be a title contender, providing that the team game is played, and second-year driver Oscar Piastri, who is already starting to match Norris's pace more regularly. This lineup will continue for at least another 2 seasons after 2024 in real life. But what about the hypothetical third car? I weighed up a few options here, such as McLaren's IndyCar star Pato O'Ward, but I think it's better to leave him as the leader of the IndyCar project, since he would be less familiar with most of the F1 tracks. A soon-to-be 3-time IndyCar champion Alex Palou has already burned his bridges with McLaren, and 2023 F2 champion Théo Pourchaire has also done a few races for McLaren's IndyCar team, but he has been hard done by them choosing to nurture Nolan Siegel out of kindergarten instead, something which doesn't help McLaren's tumultuous relationship with contracts going to plan or being maintained effectively. Now that Pourchaire has been mentioned, I have a slight giveaway. I had other ideas for him in this video anyway, so slotting him in here doesn't work. Again, in reality, I'm sure there would be many current F1 drivers vying for a seat at McLaren if given the chance. But I think McLaren would rather sensibly choose one of their own for the third car, which leaves one clear-cut candidate that again you'd have to look to Formula 2 for. Therefore, I am giving the third seat at McLaren to Brazilian Gabriel Bortoleto, who is a close second in the Formula 2 point standings right now behind Hajar. Now this creates an exceptionally exciting lineup, certainly when it comes to looking at all of their junior Formula records, because Lando has won the MSA Formula Championship, the Toyota Racing Series, Formula Renault 2.0 and European Formula 3 before his second place finish in Formula 2. Oscar meanwhile won Formula Renault Euro Cup, Formula 3 and Formula 2 in consecutive years, and Bortoleto won Formula 3 in 2023 and is second in Formula 2 right now. And his recent last-to-first triumph in Monza shows that he's definitely ready for the big time. How he would perform as a rookie in a top F1 team would remain to be seen, but for this hypothetical 3-car team, I have gone with Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri and Gabriel Bortoleto at McLaren for 2025. I might as well just get Aston Martin out of the way, since we've just covered 2 British teams on the bounce. This is another rather easy one, and it's more good news for the Brazilians who are watching, because I have gone with Felipe Drugovich in the third car. It is well known that he won Formula 2 in 2022, and I think he at least deserves a shot as a result. And I do still think he should have been given a chance in Bahrain 2023 when Lance Stroll injured his wrists in pre-season, which is, one of many silly and avoidable accidents he has had over the years. It would be interesting to see how Felipe would fare, since he has only raced occasionally since his Formula 2 triumph. I think it would take some time, but he would eventually catch up to his teammates, especially Stroll. And speaking of, I would have to begrudgingly accept that the Nepo baby will still be there in 2025, alongside the far more superior Fernando Alonso. And so, I have gone with Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, and Felipe Drugovich at Aston Martin for 2025. Next up is the team that was shunned by both Alonso and Piastri in recent years in favour of other endeavours, which was a good decision by both of them come to think of it. I am of course talking about the steaming pile of French horse manure that is Alpine. They already have Pierre Gasly under lock and key for 2025 and beyond, and have finally got an Australian to drive for their main outfit, as they have promoted reserve driver Jack Doohan for 2025. As for the third seat, I did consider numerous drivers, including another of their junior drivers in Victor Martins. However, I think his stock has taken a bit of a turn for the worse on the back of his very trying second season in F2 thus far. But with new team principal Oliver Oakes coming in, could we even see the return of the Maz? After all, Nikita Mazepin's EU sanctions have at least been lifted now, and he maintains a somewhat cordial relationship with Oakes from his own F2 endeavours. But considering his lengthy time away, a renewal of his FIA super licence would be far from guaranteed, and his past transgressions both on and off track would create a bad taste in the mouth for would-be sponsors of the team. Furthermore, with Uralkali being a Russian company, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, for them to get to sponsor him. So, I'm afraid to say, the return of the Maz isn't happening. So who have I chosen instead? I have instead gone with the other Haas driver from 2021, Mick Schumacher. A few eyebrows are still being raised about him too, due to his previous knack for splitting cars in half, but please hear me out. Mick has been a part of Alpine's World Endurance programme since leaving Formula 1, and was the other hotly tipped candidate alongside Jack Doohan. As a result of the recent Schumacher and Doohan shootout at Paul Ricard, it's not like Mick doesn't have recent experience in Formula 1 cars since Haas ousted him in late 2022. Furthermore, Mick's father Michael won his first 2 of 7 championships, much to the chagrin of Damon Hill, with Team Enston when they were known as Benetton, and with Flavio Briatore back on board, it makes all the more sense, since he still undoubtedly respects what he and Michael Schumacher achieved together nearly 30 years ago. It also makes sense in that Alpine can afford to take chances on the driver front on the back of their poor 2024 season, something that they're willing to do as shown by the signing of Doohan. So to have Schumacher at the team 30 years after Michael's second triumph in '95 is a very poignant thing, and to have a Schumacher on the grid to begin with would be a very attractive commercial prospect, certainly more so than his former teammate Dr. Eggman. So there, I have gone with Pierre Gasly, Jack Doohan and Mick Schumacher at Alpine for 2025. With Alpine out of the way, let's discuss the team that will house one of their former drivers next year, and I am of course talking about the abusive household that Mick Schumacher called home for 2 years. I am of course talking about Haas. Esteban Ocon has finally decided to leave his childhood best friend Pierre Gasly alone and join the former Steiner ship, now piloted by Ayo Komatsu on a multi-year deal. Alongside him, Haas have already confirmed Oliver Bearman as their second driver. And yes, the Bearman has cometh, after his successful Ferrari cameo in Jeddah thrust him into the limelight. And even though his second Formula 2 season hasn't gone to plan, just like in Victor Martin's case, he has proven himself previously to be an outstanding talent and has clearly impressed Haas enough in his free practice outings. But what about the third driver? You could make the case for Logan Sargent as an American driver in an American team would be highly appealing to the US market, but I just can't see it due to his recent Williams stint causing his stock to drop. And furthermore, I think he'll end up in IndyCar and do quite well anyway. I also considered Paul Aaron, Frederick Vesti and Robert Schwartzman, but Paul Aaron has gone off the boil in Formula 2 lately, and Vesti is linked with Mercedes and don't know if Haas would even be interested. Meanwhile, Robert Schwartzman has an incredible junior record, winning Formula 3 in 2019 and finishing 4th and 2nd in his 2 Formula 2 campaigns. And while he has been a Ferrari test driver ever since, he hasn't actually competed in an open wheel race since 2021. In addition, the chances are that his super license points from his F2 runner-up position are set to expire soon, and combined with Haas's preference to sign drivers with experience, I unfortunately can't see it happening for Schwartzman, as much as I think he should have had a chance by now. So then, who does get the third seat at Haas? Well, I know it's a bit of a boring option, but I have ironically gone with a driver set to leave the team at season's end, and that is Kevin Magnussen. Apart from a 1-year hiatus, he has been with the team since 2017, and he has shown flashes of speed such as his pole position in Brazil 2 years ago, even though things haven't been going his way lately and generally he has been inferior to Nico Hülkenberg. But with Hülkenberg going elsewhere for 25, and the fact that Haas probably won't want two rookies again, it has opened the door back for him yet again. So I have gone with Kevin Magnussen, Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman at Haas for 2025. The next two teams are rather more difficult to decide, as they are both front-running teams who are evidently looking to reclaim championship glory. Let's start with Ferrari first, as we've just covered a Ferrari customer team in Haas before this. Ferrari have already got Charles Leclerc on lockdown for many years to come, reportedly to the end of 2029. He is of course capable of challenging for titles, but only when his strategy doesn't inevitably ruin things for him. And the potential of their driver lineup has risen astronomically with the signing of the one and only Lewis Hamilton. And so with their stock so high, who do they turn to for the third car? Oliver Behrman did prove that rookies can get done what is asked of them, but that doesn't mean to say that all rookies would be anywhere near that. I am again referring back to the likes of Robert Schwartzman with this point. But while Ferrari could potentially afford to give a rookie a shot due to the high calibers of drivers it already has here, realistically, if I was Ferrari, I would still go with someone more experienced, particularly someone who has won races before. Therefore, I have gone with Valtteri Bottas. He previously worked with Lewis for 5 straight seasons back in their Mercedes days, and from what I can tell, their relationship is still good. Furthermore, he has just done 3 seasons with the Alfa Romeo Sauber team, a team that has utilised the Ferrari engine throughout. Furthermore, Valtteri has been the superior driver to Zhou Guanyu throughout his time here. His track record shows that he has won 10 races and achieved 67 podiums across his career. And while 2024 hasn't been great so far due to the Sauber being by far the slowest car, he has a decorated enough career and has openly expressed his desire to continue in Formula 1, as in real life his Sauber contract hasn't yet been renewed. I did briefly consider putting Kevin Magnussen as well for the excitement of it, and because, Haas use Ferrari engines too, but at the same time he only has the one podium to his name, and the fact that he's been outperformed by Hülkenberg for the last 2 seasons, I thought against it. So I have gone with Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas at Ferrari for 2025. The penultimate team I have is Mercedes. Obviously Lewis Hamilton is off to the Scuderia now, so naturally George Russell will become the lead driver at the Silver Arrows. Andrea Kimi Antonelli has already been announced as the second driver in line of his meteoric rise through the lower formulas, in spite of Formula 2 and his first free practice session not going to plan. But with Hamilton gone, what other options are there in the case of a hypothetical 3-car situation? I first considered Valtteri Bottas, and the argument can be made for him to rejoin Mercedes as he knows the team and its leadership well from before, and of course it's a great deal more race-winning experience for a team gunning for their pre-2022 glory days, and his overall experience would help Antonelli further as well. But considering his rather frosty past with George Russell, the very man who replaced him to begin with, and of whom nearly tried taking his seat by literal force at Imola that one time, I don't think this would create a healthy environment. Perhaps not the same as Lewis and Nico, or Gasly and Ocon at Alpine, but still not all that great. Plus, I've already placed him at Ferrari, and you obviously can't drive for 2 teams at the same time. So where does that leave us? With Antonelli being a rookie, I cannot see Mercedes going for another rookie. And while Frederick Vesti might have been a shout, I just don't think Toto would hold him in quite a high enough regard to replace him straight there like he's done with Kimi. Rules are rules after all, and at the start of the video I said that if a driver is under contract for the actual 25 season, I cannot move them, so I can't exactly bring Lewis Hamilton back here. But if Mercedes would want someone with race-winning experience, and again stipulating to the rules, let me come out of left field for this one. Sebastian Vettel. He is one of the most decorated drivers ever, having the 4th highest amount of both race wins and pole positions at 53 and 57 respectively, as well as the 3rd highest total podium finishes at 122. With this being Mercedes, of course, his German nationality would also bode well for them. plus the hype created on his return would reignite the interest in Formula One from both German fans and potential German sponsors. No doubt Toto's phone would melt in his hand in this scenario. And while there are people who could argue that he's been past it for a while and would be rusty on his return, there'd no doubt be scope for him to catch up once he gets back into it, and be able to pass on his wisdom and knowledge onto young Kimi Antonelli as well. Furthermore, in his one season in the current ground effect era, he beat his teammate Lance Stroll in the standings pretty convincingly despite missing 2 races. Finally, I just couldn't see him going back to Ferrari after the way Charles Leclerc made mincemeat out of him previously, which is another reason why I put Bottas there instead, and put Vettel here. So for Mercedes, I've rather unconventionally gone with George Russell, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and Sebastian Vettel for 2025. Having just mentioned in the previous section about a German driver in a German team, that leads us nicely onto the final team of the lot, Sauber. They will of course become Audi for 2026 and beyond, so I doubt that 2025 will be great for them again, since they are still in a building up phase. Nonetheless, the Audi bosses are more than happy in that they've already got a German on board, with Nico Hülkenberg moving over from Haas to be a part of this intriguing project. Nobody else has currently been signed to the team, even if Valtteri Bottas is being courted with a new contract in real life, but I've already put him alongside Lewis at Ferrari here. So this opens the door back up for their incumbent driver Zhou Guanyu, who, despite being seemingly the slowest driver in outright pace a lot of the time this season, does make up for it in the way of the vast Chinese financial backing he brings. Any extra cash brought through the door is a healthy bonus for this team, as they would be looking to invest in the development of their Formula One project. But what about the third seat? I did mention him briefly already, but if you remember earlier in this video, I mentioned that I'd had other plans for one Théo Pourchaire, and that is who I have gone with. He is on the opposite end of the spectrum to Zhou Guanyu, because while he has admittedly not got the same level of budget as a lot of drivers, he has shown that he more than deserves at least a shot in Formula One. His junior career results make for some fantastic reading. Second in Formula 3 in 2020, followed by 3 years in Formula 2 in which he came 5th, 2nd and 1st respectively. He still appears to be backed by the Sauber Academy, and it would seem illogical to not promote him given his past successes. Another Sauber Academy member, Zane Maloney, was also considered here, but after winning both races of the Bahrain Formula 2 round, he has fallen off the boil somewhat. But no doubt he'd be put in a reserve role, just in case any of the 3 that I did choose couldn't race at any point. And so with that, I have gone with Nico Hülkenberg, Zhou Guanyu and Théo Pourchaire for 2025. And that concludes my predicted driver lineup for a 2025 season in which 3 car teams are mandated. And so to conclude this video, here is a brief summary all in one place for you to go and mull over if you like. But what about you? Do you agree with my picks? Disagree with my picks? Which ones would you change in any way if not? Feel free to chime in with your comments down below. Thank you for watching.